are looking at magnetic flux shifts, and biologists and volcanologists. You need the guts to stand up for mankind, and for mankind that will become part of the, I call the midwifery of the galaxy. Part of the advanced civilization will move, as Michio Kaku says, not just from an energy culture that's zero, that uses coal and burns things, but we'll move to a culture where our spirituality will transcend religion, where we will transcend science and technology. We won't merge with it like the Cylons and the Space Galactica, but we will transcend technology because we'll recognize what we are and the nature of our universe. And if we don't, this question mark of these converging events will become an exclamation mark and the end of the civilization of mankind on this orb. And it is by design because it's evil. And it goes back to Onanes, it goes back to the fish gods, the Gorgons, the Nephilim that came from the star system Orion. It's the reason why the positions of the three great pyramids of Giza, the Giza Plateau, are exactly in the positions of the primary stars of the belt of Orion, is because they are the chief among these civilizations of darkness who have created chaos and transferred technology and avatared our culture and steered the spirit bodies of our leaders by indwelling them like a parasite and steering them to crush like slave masters the rest of civilization and to drive us into the ground. And that's why we're in the state we're in. Mm. We've been avatared into a trench of death and destruction. Mm. And they've cursed their ancestors, their descendants. They've done sex magic and demonic rituals. They've passed these technologies of the spirit of the hyperdimensional realms onto the royals of Europe. And all of the rulers of the world are all occultists. That's why when you go to JPL, the original people that worked in NASA, that's why when you go to NASA and all these things, they completely understand numerology, sacred geometry, ley lines, the hyperdimensional reality, the spirit realm. They completely understand that. It's not something foreign to them, these mathematicians and scientists. They all know intuitively because they wouldn't even be there in a position of power unless they knew this in their inner being and weren't even taught it. It's part of their DNA.
Yep.
Okay? Now, when people grasp this, they have to understand what I've told you is a very big chunk of shocking reality, but they better wake up quickly because we don't have a lot of time left. And those who do know, like the scientists that contacted you, they need to come clean. They need to come clean with their name. They need to put out reports. They need to be honest. They need to then challenge this theory that I've just put forward. They need to challenge the data. They need to track the perturbations of the asteroid belt. They need to track this with this WISE satellite and find out where the data is and who's hiding it and why we don't have public disclosure. Because if we don't, we're going to have a major catastrophe.
Yeah. I'm 100% with you, Dr. Bill. And that's a very eloquent summary. And let's do what we can with this information. This is a fairly good quality recording we got here, and I'll be able to get that out with some supplementary information. I hope that gets up
to, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to present this on my conference in Santa Clara, California, but before then I'm going to release more and more data. If they go to clayandiron.com, they're going to see some solid scientific information. They're going to see references. They're going to see a theory put together. And I want it challenged because there's parts that need to be modified or tweaked or data inserted to give a better predictive capacity. And what I've done is I've drawn some theorems and some corollaries to say, hey, if these are the things going on, we can predict that when there may be a pole shift, when there may be a magnetosphere collapse, when there may be crop failure, when there may be superquakes, which part of the Earth will be exposed, whether it'll be in the winter or summer or spring, which part of the northern or southern hemisphere is likely to be exposed to solar mass ejection, at what angle that solar mass ejection is likely to perturb the magnetosphere of the Earth. All of these things give predictive scientific ability for us to prepare the populations, and if necessary, move millions of people so they're not in harm's way.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And if we don't, their blood is on our hands.
Yep.
And that doesn't matter what color their skin is and what religious viewpoint or who they are, we as mankind have to come together. Yep. Not from an alien invasion, but from an invasion of evil that has been here for millennia, and we just don't want to recognize it.
Yeah. Very good, Dr. Bill. Let me just ask you another question, which I will splice into an earlier part of the interview, I think. And this is connected with Larry Joseph's contact with Professor Dmitriev in Russia, which you probably know all about this.
Yeah, I know all about that because he told me quite a bit about it privately besides the shows we've done, yeah.
Yeah, I would be very interested in your take, if you can summarize it, if it's summarizable in a few sound bites, about the prospect of the whole solar system starting to enter this giant electromagnetic cloud that could be 30 light years across. What bearing does that have on everything that you've been talking about just now? Can you speak to that at all?
Well, I think there's some evidence of that. The evidence is that somewhere around 13.5 million years ago, we passed through the galactic plane. And we're passing through an energetic zone of the galaxy right now, or starting to. The presence of this energetic zone has cosmic particles that act as micronuclei for the formation of rain. They also perturb the magnetosphere, and they actually energize nuclear reactions in Jupiter as well as the Sun. So if you actually look at Jupiter and its thermal energy output in the infrared and X-ray level, Jupiter, even before the entry of this so-called dwarf star, has been increasing its energy output. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think he's onto something, but I think it's a minor thing, to be honest with you. I don't think it's a major one. I think the two major cycles are the approaching dwarf star and its debris cloud, which may also cause some asteroid or comet impacts on Earth, or near passes, and this precession of the equinox effect with a magnetic flip of the sun, because like gears, the sun's magnetic field is linked to the Earth, and when the Earth is near its magnetic flip zone, every 11,500 years, a tiny perturbation of the sun's flipping will push the Earth over to its final stage and cause a rotational interactive Coriolis force between these two rotating spheres, the outer crust and the outer mantle and the inner mantle, causing all these dynamic movements of the tectonic plates. So the axis is going to change, and it'll precess over a period of probably 2 months or so. Mm-hmm. And what that means is that we're going to be seeing very major changes in climate, sea levels, radiation levels are going to be very dangerous on the Earth. A lot of trees and crops failed. The dangers of forest fires with trees and crops that fail becomes, when they die, of course, they become tinder for a fire.
When's your personal guess, Dr. Bill, about when this might start to impact?
Well, I think
on
events are going to keep ramping up with bigger and bigger earthquakes. I think we're going to see famine long before then, in the next 2 to 3 years. But my guess is the really, really big events are probably not going to happen until somewhere around 2015, 2016. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking that somewhere around 2015, 2016, we're going to see increasing events until finally, big stuff really happens. Mm-hmm. But I can't tell you when. But any time after 2012 is wide open for a major crustal slip, for magnetic field reversal, and these things happening. But I think somewhere between 2012 and 2016 is where I'm guessing. And that's only a guess right now.
Understood, yeah. In the meantime, there's a lot of injected nonsense into the alternative media community about 2012, which is just another form of distraction just to confuse it.
Yeah, it is. In fact, it's like a Y2K. Y2K, they fully knew it was a problem, and I found out from my people inside Interlochen and IBM. They created the Y2K thing because they were wanting to have all the computers talk to each other. This is what my friend in IBM Corporation told me. Mm-hmm. And I said this, that they did this so that they would get all the computers on the same digital platform. And they would also convince places like South America that didn't have a grid that they should develop a power grid for distribution of power. So if a set of power generators went down due to something either electronic or solar mass ejection or whatever, they'd feed power to that area, to the power grid from areas where the generators didn't die.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they basically wanted the computers to all speak on the same platforms of data, which is what Y2K was all about. It's basically normalizing data transmission and standardizing bit rate and parity and all this stuff for transmission of data around the world.
Okay, gotcha.
That's the real purpose of Y2K.
Interesting. All right. Let me now just tell you off record, because I promised I would. The guy who contacted us to tell us this stuff is now working for the Department of Homeland Security. This is
there's other people like this guy and scientists like these Russian scientists I need to interact with, because I'm more like a Renaissance person.
Yeah.
I've got a what I call a talent at mathematics and